Hello my creative friends, I'm Heather North from heatherscreativeblessings.com. Today I am taking part in Altenew's video challenge number 4. They challenge us to use some Altenew products and a video. So I chose the Sketchy Cities America 2. This is Seattle, and I've had this for several months and have yet to open it, and so I thought this would be a great time to pull this stamp set out and just play with it. I'm going to do one of my favorite techniques. It's the ink smushing technique. I have here some Tim Holtz Distress watercolor paper, and I'm just going to take several colors of ink and smush them into my craft mat. Any non-porous surface will work for this. I have here Wilted Violet, Seedless Preserves, Mermaid Lagoon, and I'm going to pull in some Dusty Concord as well. And I smush them and overlap them so that the colors will blend and move and be all over my paper. Then I'm just going to take some regular water and a spritzer bottle, and I'm going to spritz all that ink and lay my watercolor paper into the ink and just swirl it around a little bit. And then I dab it into different colors as well. One of the beauties of this technique is it turns out differently each time. I wanted a little bit deeper color, so I pulled in some more let's see, I think that's Dusty Concord. And then I am not patient. You can let this sit to dry, but what I do is I take my heat tool and dry each layer, and then I dab it in again. And by doing this, you get that wonderful speckled dot look. And since I'm going for Seattle, which, you know, Seattle rains all the time, rainy sky, I wanted those dots on there. So I've got the dark dots by doing this, but I also wanted some lighter dots. So what I have here is the Falling Snow stencil from Simon Says Stamp. I just laid it over my cardstock, and then I'm going to take some more of that water and spritz it over. And then I'm going to let it sit for about 5 to 10 seconds. And then I'm going to take a paper towel and just lift off that water. Distress ink reacts with water, so by doing this, I'm going to not only have the colors move a little bit, but look at that. See those dots kind of appear? And I'm even going to take the paper towel again and dab those dots and just lift off a little bit of color. This is a great way to add some depth to your background. I'm going to use my Misty to stamp out my Skyline, but I just picked up this tip from Understand Blue that I had to share with you guys. What she did was she took some washi tape and put it over her magnets, and by doing this it gives you a little bit of a tail so you can pick up your magnets more easily. But also when those magnets stick together, ouch, it's hard to get them apart. You have to slide them apart, and by having these little washi tails, it's super easy to, well, easier to pull them apart from each other. The best thing for me, though, I think, is just having something to grab onto to pull them off of the Misty without having them pop together as I'm pulling them off. In my vision for this card, I wanted the sky to be really dark at the top and to have a little bit of a lighter glow, because the city and the city lights would make it glow even in the twilight dusk. So I've got the light color on what will be the bottom. And then I am inking it up with some VersaFine ink. Now this is watercolor cardstock, and even though I use the smoother side, it has a lot of little bumps and ridges, so it is hard to get a good impression. That's why I love using the Misty, because I can stamp it and then ink it up and again and stamp it again. And any parts that didn't get fully inked or aren't quite dark enough, this really does do magic. Whenever I use VersaFine ink, I like to use some clear embossing powder, but I especially wanted it for this because when that embossing powder melts, it's going to get glossy and a little bit raised and even darker so that the image pops even more. The background was still too dark and there wasn't quite enough contrast. So remember how I said distress ink reacts with water? What I'm doing here is just taking some plain water and a paintbrush, and I'm painting over the buildings and the Ferris wheel, and then I am picking up some of the ink with a paper towel. So this is really sped up, but in reality I did wait a few seconds in between each time. That Ferris wheel right there, you could really see how the color lifted by letting it wait. And then I'm also outlining the buildings, and I will take a little bit of water, and it's just a damp brush, it's not very wet here, and I'm adding in kind of wispy clouds in theory. You could also do streaks down because again it's a rainy kind of Seattle twilight. For my sentiment, I have a black banner that I cut out of a die from Pretty Pink Posh. I will have a list to all my products below. But I'm taking the Greetings from Seattle sentiment from that same stamp set, and I'm going to use Versamark and then white embossing powder. And even though I used an embossing tool to kind of remove static, I still had a few stray white powders, so I just used a dry paintbrush to brush those off. The tweezers really help when you are heat setting small things like this so that you don't burn your hand. So again, heat setting it and melting that embossing powder. I decided to trim this down a little bit, so I took about 1/8 of an inch off the top and the side, and I'm layering it on a white card base. I also took a strip of white cardstock and attached it to the back of this banner and then trimmed it down so that it would again pop a little bit more for the contrast between the background and the banner. I usually use glue when I've got watercolor paper, but I had this stamp runner right beside me, so I just generously put a lot of double-sided tape at the back, and I'm taping it down to my card base, centering it on that white cardstock. If you find a lot of warpage, a good idea is to put something heavy down on top of it so that it lays flat. Just leave it for a few hours or overnight. Now that little 1/8 inch strip that I had cut down from the front, I'm just going to adhere it into the inside panel. I'm using my grid mat to line it up, and just adds a little touch of something to the inside of my card. And then I don't know exactly what I want to put on the inside, so I didn't stamp it yet, but there are several sentiments from this set that would work well inside of my card. So that is my card for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you like my card, be sure and give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my videos, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you, Altenew, for this opportunity to play along with your fabulous stamp sets. I think this is a really fun challenge, and I hope to catch your next one. I'll see you guys later. Hope you find some time today to get a little creative. Bye!